If you're new here, welcome to our channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Your support means the world to us and helps us keep sharing stories that deserve to be heard. My husband took over the restaurant Reservation. I made for my dad's celebration and brought his parents instead. He didn't even ask. He just sent a text at 4 in the afternoon on the day of the dinner. My family deserves it more. My CEO is in town and I need this table to close a promotion. Your dad belongs at some cheap pub anyway. He'd be more comfortable there. I read the message twice. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. There was just a sudden absolute stillness in my chest, like a heavy door slamming shut in an empty room. He wasn't asking for the reservation. He had already called the restaurant and changed the name on the booking. He thought he had one. He thought I would scramble to find a burger joint for my father while he wined and dined his boss at my expense. I replied with 7 words. My brother owns this place. He left me on red. He didn't believe me. He didn't listen, and that was the last mistake he would ever make. As my husband, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Also wishing you all a happy, healthy and powerful 2026. Please show your support for the channel so we can keep bringing you these stories. I'd love to hear from you. My father. Brian spent 39 years with grease permanently etched into his fingerprints. He was a mechanic, the kind of man who could diagnose a dying transmission just by listening to the hum of the engine. He didn't have a portfolio or a LinkedIn profile. He had callous hands, a shop that smelled like oil and peppermint, and a spine made of steel. He raised me alone after mom left, working double shifts to make sure I had textbooks and braces. He never complained. He never asked for credit. He just did the work. Then there was Leo, my husband of 3 years. Leo didn't fix things, he sold them. He was a sales executive for a tech firm, but if you asked him, he was a visionary. He was obsessed with the optics of success. He ironed his jeans. He leased a car that cost more than my first year of college tuition, just so he could park it in the front row. He treated life like a performance art piece where the audience was anyone he thought could give him a promotion. The contrast between the 3 men in my life wasn't just stark. It was violent. When my dad came over for dinner, he would scrub his hands with heavy-duty cleaner 3 times before touching anything in our pristine, grayscale living room. He sat on the edge of the sofa, afraid to wrinkle the fabric. Leo would watch him with this tight, polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. It was a look of tolerance, the way you look at a stray dog someone else brought inside. Leo never said it to my face in the beginning, but I felt it. He looked down on my father. He looked down on the grease, the blue-collar accent, the way Dad would fix a leaky faucet instead of hiring a plumber to Leo. My father represented everything. He was terrified of becoming invisible, and nothing represented visibility to Leo. More than the gilded anchor, it sat on the Boston waterfront. A fortress of glass and mahogany. It wasn't just a steakhouse, it was a gatekeeper. You couldn't just book a table on an app. You had to know someone. There was a 7-month waiting list for the general public, but the real power players, the CEOs, the senators, the old money families, they walked right in. Leo was obsessed with it. He talked about the gilded anchor, the way religious men talk about cathedrals. He checked their Instagram daily. He tried to network with junior managers just to get a foot in the door. To him, eating there wasn't about the food, it was about validation. It was proof that he had ascended, that he was part of the elite, that he wasn't just a salesman from the suburbs pretending to be a wolf of Wall Street for my dad's 65th birthday. I wanted to give him something he would never buy for himself. I wanted him to be treated like a king. I wanted him to sit by the window, look out at the harbor and eat a steak that cost more than a brake pad change. So I secured a reservation. Leo didn't know how I did it. He just knew I had it. And from the moment I told him I had a table for 4 at 7 o'clock on Sunday night, I saw the hunger in his eyes. He didn't see a birthday celebration for a mechanic. He saw an asset. He saw an opportunity, and like everything else in my life, he decided it was too good to be wasted on my family. We lived in the guest house behind his parents' estate. On paper it looked like generosity. Leo told everyone we were saving for a forever home by staying with Isla and George. In reality, I wasn't a tenant. I was a live-in asset manager with a checkbook. The dynamic was subtle at first, a grocery run here, a utility bill there. But then came the renovation 3 months ago. Leo walked into our small living room with a stack of contractor estimates. He threw them on the coffee table like he was dealing a winning hand of poker. Mom wants to redo the master bath in the guest house, he said, loosening his tie. Imported Italian tile, heated floors, a rainfall shower. It's going to look incredible. I looked at the total $13,000. That's nice for them, I said, going back to my laptop. I hope they enjoy it. Leo laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. No, Em. We're paying for it, or rather you are. My bonus doesn't hit until next quarter, and the contractor needs the deposit. Now I stopped typing, excuse me. It's an investment, he said, his voice taking on that condescending tone he used when explaining simple concepts to a child. We live here rent-free. This increases the property value, its equity. Besides, after everything my parents have done for you, welcoming you in, looking past your background, it's the least you can do there. It was the hook. For years, I had been wearing what I now call the survivor's invisible chain. When you grow up with a single parent scraping by patching holes in your clothes, and watching other families take vacations you can't afford, you develop a deep-seated belief that you are somehow less than. You believe that stability is a luxury you have to earn. Leo and his parents knew this. They sensed that insecurity like sharks smell blood in the water. They had convinced me that their acceptance was a gift I had to constantly repay. I wasn't just a wife. I was a charity case they had graciously allowed into their circle. Every time I paid a bill, every time I swallowed an insult, every time I wrote a check, I was paying my admission fee to a family that I thought was better than mine. I looked at Leo. I looked at the estimate, and I felt that familiar heavy chain tugging at my throat. I didn't want to be the ungrateful girl from the broken home. I didn't want to be the leech. I wanted to be worthy, so I wrote the check, $13,000 from my savings money I had earned managing supply chains, optimizing logistics, working 50-hour weeks. Good girl, Leo said, snatching the check before the ink was dry. Mom will be thrilled. He didn't say thank you. He just walked out. They started the renovations the next week. Isla came over every day to supervise, criticizing my housekeeping. While workmen tore apart the bathroom I had paid for, she treated me like a squatter in my own home. Even as my money paid for the marble she walked on, I realized then that the chain wasn't keeping me safe. It was strangling me. I had paid $13,000 for a golden cage, thinking it would buy me respect, but all it bought me was a heated floor. I was barely allowed to stand on the week of my father's 65th birthday. The tension in the house was physical. Leo was vibrating with anxiety. His CEO was flying in from New York on Sunday, the same day as my dad's dinner. Leo had been trying for weeks to secure a reservation at the Gilded Anchor, calling in favors, bribing assistants, refreshing the booking app until his thumbs were sore. Nothing. On Wednesday night, I came home to find him pacing the living room. He stopped when I walked in, his eyes narrowing. You have a reservation, he said. It wasn't a question. I set my bag down. I saw the confirmation email on the iPad. 7 o'clock Sunday. A prime waterfront table at the Gilded Anchor. He stepped closer, invading my space. How did you get it? I've been trying for a month. I have a contact. I said vaguely, it's for my dad's birthday. I told you this, cancel it. The air left the room. What, cancel the birthday dinner, or rather, transfer the reservation to me? I need that table. Freya, the CEO, is expecting the best if I take him to some second-tier steakhouse. I look weak if I walk him into the Gilded Anchor at prime time. I look like a player. I get the promotion. We get the money. No. I said it's my dad's 65th. This is special. Leo scoffed, running a hand through his hair. Special? Freya, be serious. Your dad is a mechanic. He drinks beer from a can. He doesn't know the difference between a dry-aged ribeye and a supermarket steak. He'll be uncomfortable there. He'll embarrass me just by existing in that space. He's my father. I said, my voice shaking with a rage I barely recognized. And he deserves one night where he isn't treated like he's invisible. He is invisible. Leo shouted, that's his lot in life. Don't drag me down with him. You give me that reservation code, or you can forget about me paying for anything around here next month. You want to play the independent woman? Fine. See how far you get without my family's support. I walked away. I locked the bedroom door. I didn't give him the code, but I underestimated him. I underestimated how low a desperate, status-obsessed man would go while I was in the shower. The next morning he went into my phone. He found the confirmation. He forwarded it to himself and then he called the restaurant pretending to be me, changing the name on the reservation. I didn't find out until Sunday afternoon at 4 in the afternoon. When that text message arrived, the one telling me my dad belonged at a cheap pub. He thought he had outsmart me. He thought he had stolen the crown jewel of the weekend. He didn't know that he hadn't just stolen a table. He had walked directly into a trap that had been waiting for him for years. Sunday night arrived wrapped in a cool Boston mist. I picked up my dad in my own car. He was wearing his one good suit, a charcoal gray number he'd bought for my mother's funeral 10 years ago. It was a little tight across the shoulders, but he had polished his shoes until they reflected the street lights. He looked nervous. He looked proud. He looked like a man who was trying his best to fit into a world that had never made space for him. "You sure about this keto?" he asked as we pulled up to the valet stand. "That place looks expensive. Maybe we should just grab a burger." "No burgers tonight, Dad," I said, squeezing his hand. "Tonight you eat like a king." We walked into the Gilded Anchor. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and gold leaf. The air smelled of expensive perfume and aged beef. The Maester D looked up. His face professional and impassive. "Reservation for Freya," I said clearly. He tapped his screen, frowned, then tapped again. "I see the reservation, ma'am. But it appears your party has already been seated. Table 4 by the water, I see," I said. My voice was calm, too calm. "Thank you." I led my father into the main dining room. It was packed. The hum of conversation was low and refined. And there in the prime corner booth overlooking the harbor, my booth sat Leo. He was laughing at something, the CO said, leaning in with that desperate, eager please energy. Isla and George were there too, drinking wine that I knew cost more than my dad's weekly paycheck. They looked comfortable. They looked entitled. Leo saw us first. His smile faltered, then hardened into a glare. He stood up and intercepted us before we could reach the table, blocking my path like a bouncer. "What are you doing here?" He hissed, his voice low but venomous. "You stole my reservation, Leo," I said loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "I repurposed it," he corrected, glancing nervously back at his boss. "Look at your father, Freya. Look at his suit. He doesn't belong here. He looks like he's here to fix the plumbing, not eat the food. Take him to a diner where he'll be comfortable. Go." My father shrunk a little, his eyes dropping to the floor. "No," I said, "we're not going anywhere." Leo grabbed my arm. "You are making a scene. Leave now or I swear to God you won't have a home to go back to tonight." That was the moment. The breaking point. I pulled my arm free. I didn't look at Leo. I looked past him toward the kitchen doors. I raised my hand not in a wave but in a signal. The double doors swung open. The dining room went silent. Archie walked out. He wasn't wearing a server's uniform. He was wearing pristine chef's whites, his name embroidered on the chest. He didn't walk. He strode. The staff stopped what they were doing and stood at attention. The Maester D bowed his head slightly. He walked straight past Leo without even looking at him. He walked right up to my father. "Happy birthday, Dad," Archie said, his voice booming in the quiet room. He hugged him, ignoring the grease stains that might have been on Dad's hands, ignoring the cheap suit. Then he turned slowly. Deliberately he looked at Leo, who was standing there with his mouth open, pale as a sheet. He looked at the CEO, who was staring in confusion. He looked at Isla and George, who were frozen midship. "I believe," Archie said, his voice icy and loud, "that you are sitting at my father's table for a few seconds." The only sound in the room was the clicking of silverware from distant tables. The CEO, a man named Mr. Steyerling, who was known for his ruthlessness in the boardroom, looked from Archie to Leo, his eyebrows raised in silent interrogation. Leo blinked, his brain clearly misfiring as it tried to rewrite reality on the fly. He stood up, smoothing his jacket. A frantic plastic smile plastered on his face. "Archie," he exclaimed, his voice cracking slightly. "I didn't know you were working tonight. Mr. Freddy, this is Freya's brother. We go way back. I planned this whole thing as a surprise." He looked at me, his eyes wide and pleading, begging me to play along. "Write him a surprise for your dad. Cut the crap. Leo. Archie said he didn't raise his voice, he didn't have to. The authority radiated off him like heat. Archie snapped his fingers. A server appeared instantly, placing a silver tray on the table directly in front of the CEO. On it was a single sheet of heavy cream-colored paper. "What is this?" Leo asked, his smile faltering the bill. "We haven't even ordered." "Oh, this isn't for the food," Archie said, his gaze fixed on Leo. "Freddie, my brother-in-law here, likes to play the part of the wealthy provider. He talks a big game about status and success, but the truth is he's been financing his lifestyle and his parents' lifestyle on my sister's back for 3 years." Mr. Freddie picked up the paper. He adjusted his glasses and began to read. "Italian marble tile, $4,000. Archie recited from memory, his voice cutting through the air-heated flooring system. $3,000. Custom vanity and fixtures, $2,500. Monthly gratitude payments disguised as utility bills, $2,500. Archie leaned in, placing his hands on the table. "Total stolen from my sister to renovate a house she doesn't own. $13,000 paid in full by Freya, balance remaining in Leo's bank account." "Zero," Isla gasped, clutching her pearls. George looked down at his wine glass. Leo turned purple. This was the moment psychologists call a narcissistic injury. It wasn't just embarrassment, it was a psychological annihilation. His entire identity, the successful executive, the provider, the man superior to the blue-collar trash, was being stripped away in front of the one person he needed to impress. He didn't cry. He didn't apologize. He exploded. "You set me up," Leo screamed, slamming his hand on the table. The dining room went dead. Silent. "You planned this. You let me come here. You let me bring my boss just to humiliate me." He spun on me, his finger pointing in my face, shaking with rage. "You liar. You told me your brother was a cook. You hid this, you hid his money, you tricked me into looking stupid." "I didn't hide anything," Leo the First said, my voice steady and cold. "You never asked. You were too busy mocking my father's job to realize his son built an empire." "She's a fraud," Leo yelled at the CEO. Desperate to control the narrative, "She manipulated me. She let me pay for Let me think she let you think you were a big man." Archie finished for him, "But we all know who really paid for that suit you're wearing." Mr. Freddie set the paper down. He looked at Leo with an expression of pure, unfiltered disgust. It wasn't anger. It was the look one gives to something unpleasant, stuck to the bottom of a shoe. "Leo," Mr. Freddie said quietly, "sit down. You're making a scene." "But sir, I said sit down." Leo collapsed into his chair, breathing hard, his eyes darting around the room, looking for an exit that didn't exist. The illusion was gone. The golden boy was gone. All that was left was a small, angry man sitting at a table he couldn't afford. Surrounded by the people he had tried to erase, Mr. Freddie stood up, buttoning his jacket with a finality that echoed louder than any shout. He didn't look at Leo. He looked at me. Then at Archie. "I apologize for the disturbance," he said, his voice clipped and professional. Then he turned his gaze to the man slumped in the chair beside him. "Leo, don't bother coming into the office on Monday. You are suspended indefinitely pending a full internal audit of your expenses. If you treat your family like this, I can only imagine what you're doing with my company's accounts." "But the promotion," Leo whispered, his voice small and broken. "The promotion is for a leader," Mr. Freddie said, walking away. "Not a leech." Isla and George sat in stunned silence, their wine glass untouched. They looked at Leo, then at me, waiting for me to fix it, waiting for me to smooth things over, to pay the bill, to handle the mess like I always did. But the Bank of Freya was closed. I took off my wedding ring. It wasn't a diamond. It was a simple band Leo had bought during his lean years, promising to upgrade it later. He never did. I placed it on the silver tray right on top of the itemized bill Archie had printed. "Freya." Leo crooked, reaching for my hand. "Don't do this. We can fix this." I was under pressure." "You weren't under pressure. Leo, you were under the delusion that I was an accessory to your life instead of a partner." I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized I felt nothing. The anger was gone. The hurt was gone. There was only the clarity of a balance sheet that had finally been zeroed out. "The renovations," I said, pointing to the paper, "the tile, the heated floors, the vanity. Consider that my parting gift, that $13,000, is your severance package because I'm taking the only asset that actually matters. I turned to my father, ready to eat. Dad. Starving, he said. Standing tall, we didn't eat in the dining room. Archie led us through the swinging doors, past the stunned kitchen staff, into his private chef's table. In the back. It was warm, it smelled of rosemary and garlic. It was loud and messy and real. We ate steaks that melted like butter. We laughed until our sides hurt. My dad told stories about his shop, and for the first time in 3 years, nobody rolled their eyes as I looked around the table at my brother and my father. I thought about Leo sitting alone in that cold, expensive dining room. There is a specific kind of poverty that has nothing to do with money. It is the poverty of the soul. Psychologists call it the delusion of the empty wallet, the belief that if you buy enough expensive things, you will become valuable. Leo wore a $1,200 suit, but inside he was bankrupt. My father wore a $50 suit from a discount rack, but he was the richest man I knew. I had spent years trying to buy a seat at a table where I was never welcome. I didn't realize until tonight that I had been building my own table all along, and the view from here was perfect. My story ends here. If you feel that this story is meaningful and brings useful lessons, please like and subscribe to the channel to support me. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next videos.